welcome to Worldwide Slotcar Chat on Zoom number 272. The gang is all here with Gio and Luff and John and Jeremy and John and Mike and John and Jim and Wayne and John and Dewan and John and Garth and John. And we're going to talk all about the slot cars that we love and adore. And I always start with show and tell, and Gio is raring to go with his show and tell. Take it away, Gio.
Yeah, I need to leave early, so I'm
Got a
gonna.
meeting to get to, yeah.
Yeah, so
Ooh,
to show and tell. So this is some progress on the Allen slot to 96, I believe. So I think maybe I showed the decals going on, and so these are Mr. Slotcar. No, these are MTR Milan decals from, I think, the Czech Republic. So the orange peel kind of things that you see here, these are already, so the decals have some kind of texture with that. So it's not me. So a bunch of pictures of the decals going on, and then during the weekend, basically I worked on the windows. So the windows basically come without any frame, they are completely clear. So I had to do the masking for doing the black borders around each of the windows, and then spray with the hairbrush. So this is on each side. There is a bit of glue here that I need to clear up. And this on the other side. Pretty happy with the way in which they came. So one thing, I don't know if I mentioned before, but as you can see, so this black part down here, the skirt. So this was actually attached to the chassis. So I cut it and then put to the body, so which I needed to kind of reshape the chassis a bit. But I think the handling of the car will benefit from this. So this is one show and tell. Then I have another one.
It looked fantastic, of course.
Yeah, gorgeous.
There's the work to be done. I'm almost done with all the minus details and cleaning stuff. So this weekend I hope I have time to install the LEDs, all the lights. So it should be pretty able. I mean, pretty good to go maybe for next Monday racing. So then I got my order maybe a week or a couple of weeks ago from Armchair, and they had a bunch of these Corvette inside. So as you know, I like to run digital, so I install a chip. I really hate the way in which these cars, the chassis and the shit were designed. I think it's nonsensical, but so there is a kind of bunch of work that need to be done. So, and because of the space is limited between the motor and these holders here for the guide, so I do use one of my C chip, which I'm not really happy about it. Anyway, in order to fit the chip, stock, basically these cars come with say like a nuts in the back and one in the front over here, and there are basically just some plastic holders on each of the side of the pod that I believe you can change later on if you want to. But if you put with the blue nuts here in the middle of the pod and the front part of the pod, basically the chip will be too much up in the air. So one of the things that I did is removing the blue nut, and then these are not just nut. There is also there is also something going inside the holder, let's say. So yeah, I mean you cannot just replace with the similar nut, so you need special bits. And in order to hold the pod in place, I decided to basically put holders or kind of, I mean, having the nuts basically on the side. And to do that, again, these are special bits. So I took the one that normally will be sitting in the brackets here and here in the middle of the brackets for installing the body to the chassis, and I use them for the side mounts. So basically, there is nothing in the front of the pod under the chip, but that's not enough because also there's quite a lot of amount of plastic, let's say, so the chip will be too much up in the air. So in order to do that, basically I had to kind of remove some plastic from the front of the pod, and so basically the chip can go a bit lower, and I'm mounting at the moment with a bunch of kind of a double side mounting tape, sponge tape. What else? Yeah, I think mainly that's it. I mean, the mounting brackets are really badly designed. I mean, I always struggle to put the screw in. So it's not like the Revo slot, where basically you can unscrew a bit of the screws and then, basically pull the body apart or aside or each of the side and then pull it out. So basically you need to unscrew completely the screws from the body. And when you have to go fit back, I mean, it's really not that simple and you have 4 of them instead of the 2 or the 3 that normally would get in other situation. Plus the screws are always the screws are also crap. I mean, some of them. I mean, it's really kind of very cheap Chinese screwery going on. I would expect that these will be basically the heads. Basically, will be how to say when so these are Philip type of screws.
So will they? You mean strip? So they're going to strip?
Yeah. I think. I mean, maybe not the one for the body, but for all the others, I think that they will strip really easily. I think they should have gone for some other kind of type of screw, like X or Torque. Anyway, I mean, but so out of the box, the car was not that good. So first of all, the guide I think is too deep and thick for at least electrics. So at the end, I decided to change for slotting plus guide, and also the braids I changed them as well for some slotting plus braids. And well, I mean, yeah, the tires are not that grippy out of the box, but after basically gluing the tires and then through them, it goes okay. I mean, for such a car, I mean, it's not too bad, let's say. Maybe with a bit more kind of a gripper tires on the back will go even better. But overall, I think on Scalextrics, it's reasonable or acceptable, let's say.
Did you have to put the LED on wires, or
yeah, good point. Yes, so the wires that you see here is basically the LEDs on wires. So there is already a hole in the chassis, but just to use that, and then basically I put that on wire. Well, I mean, so basically the design is not very digital friendly. Yeah. And for holding you can see, so these screws, I mean, like this one, for instance, you see that these are not deep enough.
Sorry, Gio. So those are the screws that you think are going to strip?
Yeah. I mean, the nuts are very, very hard. I mean, to kind of screw in. So if you play too much, I mean, I don't think that you have too much reason to play with it, but if you kind of play for a while, I think they will come straight. And so I have one for the body where basically the cross, it's a bit out of the center, so and very shallow. So not the best engineering, let's say, that you would expect from MR Slotcar.
Yep.
But saying that, I mean, I think that as a class, it makes sense. I think having some classic cars would be nice. I mean, the thing is, there was no need at all to go make a chassis and all these elongated pod. I mean, could have been done with a simpler plastic chassis and maybe even sidewinder would have been more than enough.
Yeah.
Given that the cars are quite, they're not that small. I mean, there is especially the Corvette, there is a lot of space, let's say.
Well, he was obviously trying something new. I'm sure he had I'm sure he had reasons behind everything. Whether they were good or not is I'm sure the chassis will improve, just like they all do when they try something new.
I hope not, because then it's gonna be basically you're gonna break up the class, right? So if you are gonna change the chassis to drastically with the new ones, I mean, and there is not much room. I mean, again, for digital is not the best chassis. Let's put it this way. I mean, and maybe you can say that this was not designed for digital racer, which is also fair. But yeah,
That's one area where the Scalextric chip is a little bit better because you can use the
Formula One.
GP chip, and it's already got a fly lead, and it's a lot smaller.
Yeah. Well, Oxygen is not Scalextric digital.
I mean, there is plenty of space, at least in this car, between the end of the motor and the front. The main problem is that there is the pod here and the nut that is too high, and then there is also these other two screws for holding for the guide holder, basically.
Yeah.
That basically suck up a lot of space.
So Gio, not being a digital person, did you have to drill a hole through the plate of the chassis?
No, there is already one, but it's not a big deal, John, because I've done that for the Revo slot. So I think they have only for Carrera on the side. So I do that on a regular basis. So it's not a big deal at all.
Yeah, I change the holes all the time for a lot of the slotted cars, and slotted not so much, but some of the other cars, you have to drill a hole or clean out a space so that the infrared can shine through. So it's not that big a deal.
Yeah, this one is already
in the front axle bearings and things. There's some really engineering going on in this car. It's just a shame that it doesn't lend itself to being digital. I mean, it's not I would call this a working scale model more than a racing slot car.
I mean, you obviously try to do some things that would give it good handling characteristics and tunability, as far as the original chassis design. How successful that is, I'm not passing judgment. I'm just saying his intention obviously was for this to be a good driving car.
Yeah.
And in fairness, I mean, a 1957 Corvette should not be as fast as a Porsche 962.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying that. I mean, I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that if you take if I take an Ingo car, a classic, remove the manual, I put it straight into my slot into the slot in my Scalextric track. It goes. I mean, maybe it's the rabbit. It goes much better than this car out of the box with all this nice engineering and stuff. Okay, so, but of course, after you tune and whatever, then I think they could be made the kind of comparable. These could have an edge. Then, of course, if you start going deeper with the Ninko, with putting some extra, bushing or whatever, they might, I think, go similarly. Let's say. So I mean,
sorry,
I'm not giving up.
Sorry, I was going to say, so your Ninko Classic out of the box drove better than this car out of the box.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I assume that these are mainly kind of tires. Grip
Motor and gearing are the two restrictions.
And for Scalextric Sport Track, tires definitely will play a huge role. And he might have been doing most of his testing on Polycar, since that's what they're, aside from a wood track, obviously, probably not formulated the tires for Scalextric track.
They look like urethanes. Are they urethanes at Geo?
They look like
Rubber.
The rubber.
They're
Okay.
they're slotted C1 compound.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, they are. I did know that, actually. Yeah.
Well, then that's what they are.
Yeah, that should still hook up okay on Scalextric then.
That
Yeah,
narrow?
yeah, I mean, once
That's-
you threw them, you know, yeah, I mean, the grip, there is a decent grip, let's say, right? I mean, it's not an NSR, you know, super grip tire, which,
Yeah.
again, I'm not trying to say that this should be, you know, a 5 second car on my track. I mean, there is a fun of having some cars going slow, yeah. But I think there is a lot of extra complexity that, at least for my taste, could have been avoided. I mean, one thing that I was noticing, this maybe was with the Andrew tires, that these brackets here for, you know, for attaching the body, there is a lot of float. So you can see the car going like up and down. I mean, the body floating all the time. Then once the tires were through, then of course there is a less vibration and all that wobble and stuff went away. Although I removed the, you know, these red one of these red nuts or screws on each side of the bracket. So I'm not sure 100% what they do, but for the
Why there
bracket,
was three?
yeah. So I don't know if these are, yeah. So yeah, I mean, as I said, there is quite a lot of you know, as I say, like yeah, the screw, you need to put a bit of extra kind of torque in it when you screw them through. And with these kind of you know, let's say cheap heads, it's kind of difficult. You know, you don't want to basically, you know,
Yeah.
mess them around. So, but it's just, I mean, so having a rounding or whatever. I mean, I'm still planning, you know, for my club here to make a plus. I mean, when I say making plus, means that I'm gonna buy the car and I'm gonna chip, and then I'm gonna make them kind of use, because as I said, it's really, there is a big gap in the market about, you know, these classic cars, because an Inco, you know, we're great, right? But you can find some, but the price is stupid sometimes for what they are. And so I expect that there will be, I mean, already with some of the models they've announced, it's really kind of nice, and I would expect them to perform similarly. So, which again, parity among the class, I think it's key. So I really hope that there's gonna be no much messing around with the chassis design and things, and then, you know, the class basically is a standardized kind of chassis, because I don't have time then to kind of mess around and try to build the 6-7 cars.
Yep. Well, look forward to hearing about that class racing, how it goes on digital.
I need basically a bunch of you know, couple of Ferraris and the Aston Martin.
Yep.
I hope that maybe mid next year we'll have them in place.
All of the chassis for the classic cars, the chassis will be identical, obviously a little bit different in terms of wheelbase. That's it.
Yeah. And that's, fair enough. I mean, I don't,
Alrighty.
We've
Anything else?
been racing them for a month and a half on or almost a couple of months on our 135-foot polycar track, and they just fly around.
Yeah.
And will annihilate any Ninko ever conceived of.
But out of the box or after you tune that?
To be honest, I've never put a car on the track out of the box.
Okay.
Why? I'm not quite. The person who put it together in 4 seconds was putting together toasters last week.
Mm-hmm.
So
sure. I mean,
really.
When I say basically out of the box, you know, it's not actually completely out of the box. So for me, it's again, because I prepare, I don't know, 6-7 cars for a class, right? So how quickly I can get from out of the box to be able to race on the track. That's my main thing, right? So if the car already, you know, the delta between out of the box and be on the track is not that huge, right? For me, I can do those in a short amount of time. And so for me, the first test when, remove the magnet and put the car and, mess around a bit with the brakes and then let go is kind of quick assessment of how much work do I need to do. That's the thing, right? I mean, I'm not going to race cars just completely out of the box. And what amazes me is that these shitty Inco cars that in theory should not perform that well in Moscow. I mean, they're still basically that good. I mean, I'm kind of surprised for that. But anyway.
John D on the YouTube was making a good point that their tires were, the Ninko classic tires were just fantastic. And their motor and their underpowered motor basically means that it doesn't overpower the tire traction so easily as a higher power motor would.
Yeah, but also like, I did not put like crazy amount of voltage, right? I wasn't running these at maybe 10 volts. So that is similar to what I would do with the Ninko. Now, there are also something that maybe needs also to be mentioned in order to, be fair, is that sometimes some of those Ninko Classic come with this long can motor, which some of them have, there is much more magnetic traction, which again, maybe that's also unfair plus the tire. So there are several things. But anyway, so I think that, MR Slotcar should be applauded for investing in these series. And I will support as much as I can from my side, or branding on the side, I would say. But it's still quite good plus.
Hey,
and again, maybe
Chris,
it's not the digital people that this was designed for, and I can accept.
Yeah, I'm thinking I kind of like the Thunderslot Shelby. I'd love to see more Thunderslot Trans Ams on the market, and so of course same thing for the MR Slotcar Classics. So looking forward to see more of those, in different models in the class on the market. And Chris, I gotta ask, how's Ernie on fantasy liveries?
Well, there's he's certainly done a couple on the Jags and the stuff like that. So I think there's enough. He's not going to do a ton of liveries on the Corvette, but there's so many liveries on the Corvette that if do 4 or 5, and the white kits and guys can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
When you've got a Ferrari and an Aston cars that are that iconic and that gorgeous looking. Unfortunately for you, he's not going to do a blue and yellow Aston Martin. But there will be white kits and
I have friends.
Yeah, I think fantasy liveries are not a bad idea when there's limited liveries of the real car. We've debated about what do you do with the shadow? What do you make, a green one or a yellow? Like it's not a shadow if you put a goofy livery on it. So that's a problem. But with the classic cars, there's thousands of colors of Ferraris and all kinds of stuff. So.
But even for the Corvette, right? Because you have like the classic color when they were racing, back in the old times, and then I think there are also more recent like gentleman races happening.
Oh, in the vintage guys that race at Laguna Seca and Spa and whatever, and they race old stuff and Goodwood and all. There's if you Google on that Corvette race, there's all kinds of colors that are actual cars.
Yeah.
And even if you want to do one back in the day, a lot of privateers race them in different colors.
Oh, there's right. Just Google images of that Corvette, and there's
Yep.
Just to be clear, so basically, even I didn't know, how the car was gonna perform. I of course bought 2 Livered car, so one for the collection, one for the race, and 2 white kits. And the white kits also look pretty good. So
Yeah, I should mention that both the Aston and the Ferrari have a couple of a little sill put on the chassis, which will allow the side sills on the body to be raised up a couple of millimeters, and they look much better.
Yeah. Alrighty, all done, Gio? Looks like it. Moving on. Here comes Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say that it's good that he did the sills on the Ferrari. There's been such a ballyhoo over that it's it would be nice to see that it were acceptable as a good quality model too.
Yeah.
Although I don't find the Corvette to be terribly objectionable.
No, Mike, if you look at what Scalextrics did in the 60s with a similar Lusso, I mean, they made it look like a bar of soap. So, we should be happy with.
Oh, I agree. I fully agree on that regard that you look at the old cars and I wonder, why would anybody collect these? I mean, they look like, 3-year-old toys. They really do. Yeah. I mean,
well, that's because that's what they were.
Yeah.
Well, it's always, pick a Thunder Slot that looks like the real car. It doesn't exist.
True enough, but they look great around a track.
Oh no, but we have sort of like, how many standards do we have? We have like a whole bunch of standards here,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about the long seals. I mean, doesn't really bother. I mean, once you put on the track, from the perspective from where you're looking at it, right, it doesn't really look that bad. But if it's addressing the stuff on the Ferrari and the Aston Martin, I mean, to make it a bit more scale, let's say, precise, it's not going to hurt, I would say. I mean, as long as it's not going to compromise on the performance of the chassis and the such. So
not one little tiny bit.
But at risk of, again, repeating myself, there's no bad way to enjoy this hobby. So it's like food.
Very true. All right, Mike, you got a show and tell?
Well, I was going to have me go last because my tell sort of goes into Club Corner.
Okay.
So if anybody else has got anything, go ahead.
Jim's got something, and then I'll go after Jim.
Well, mine kind of does too, because I'm going to talk about the Slotted National.
Okay. But well, you can't both have a segue, and Jim, you get a lot of segues, so I'm going to give the segue to Mike.
Okay.
So we're going to split yours up into 2 things.
Well, we can split mine up into 2 things too, but
yeah, but Jim always gets the segue.
Hold on. Why are you Americans sounding so bloody Canadian? What's going on?
We all wish we were up north.
You guys figure it out. I'm going to do my screen share and show and tell. Let you decide what kind of fighting you want to do over that. And that's not the page I want to share. There it is. Come on, there we go. Okay, so just some quick 3D printed things. This, if you don't know what it is, what you're looking at, this is the side clip for a Polycar track system. Super easy 3D modeling, and I didn't have enough for my little track, so I just designed it, and it's up on printables if you want to print some extra or whatever. This is a front panel gap filler.
Can you go back? Sorry.
Yeah.
So is this a border on the top or what piece of?
This is a clip.
Yeah, this is 2 track pieces joined together.
Okay, so I'm looking at the top of the track. Is that correct?
Yeah, the texture is the top.
Okay.
And then this thing that's shinier is the side of the track, no border.
Okay.
And so this, what you can see the layer lines is the 3D print of a clip that basically pushes into slots on both pieces of track to help hold them together.
Okay, now not having looked at the side of Polycar track a whole bunch, is that open box there?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, there's
so
no
all you
modification.
not so you just had to come up with a U-shaped clip, pardon my ignorance, to just stuff in there, right?
Yeah, and Polycar
Okay.
Polycar sells packs of them.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Good job.
Super easy, but convenient if somebody has a printer and needs clips. Bada boom, bada bing. This is the Plano 1363 box version of the front panel filler slash slot car work surface area like I did for the Harbor Freight, but because of the shape of all the cutouts on the front of a Plano box, can't do as many nifty little bits, pockets and stuff. So I put a slot, and there's 2 decent places for pockets for your screws and whatnot. There you go. There's a car on it. This is the box in question. Like I said, Plano 1363. It probably fits the 1364 and maybe the 1365, which is basically the same box but with more shelves and smaller parts, containers that go on those shelves. But I've only tested it with the 1363. So basically, for anybody who's already got the Plano box, doesn't want to buy a Harbor Freight, there's car trays and the front panel filler slash work surface thing available for printing.
Very
also
cool.
on printables. And I've decided that the slot car trays are way too easy to let go and have them spill your cars all out on your table, if not straight to the floor. So I came up with a couple of different ways to keep the tray from slipping. So what you see here are 2 posts that go into these tiny little holes in the back. This is the picture with the posts inserted into the holes. So these are meant to go at the back of your Harbor Freight, box while you're putting cars in there. And then the tray can be out as far as those posts, as long as the posts are under the inside rail that the tray is riding on. As long as those posts are within that, so they're stopped on the rail just above them, then the tray will not just fall out of your box. I also came up with a under the rail kind of way to do it using these little clip things that push up from underneath. So they basically grab the rail that the tray slides on from below to keep it from tipping, which works, except the amount that this has to protrude, because it needs to be held on tightly. You actually need to use some glue to make sure this doesn't work itself free. And it's so large, and the shelf areas between the shelves is so short, like it's only like 45 millimeters or something from rail to rail. So already the cars have very little space. So if you have a car that takes up all the space, like especially those cars are so long and wide, they take up all that space. They actually hit the clips for the shelf above, or if you're pulling out a shelf with the clips on it, they'll hit the cars on the shelf below. And you can't put the containers back in because it'll also hit the clips. So I haven't even uploaded that version. I decided that is too limiting. The main reason I wanted to do that is because the posts, to me, they're just going to get broken off. And they're printed so that they don't break easily, right? You'll have to really hit them up against something or try to break them off. But since they stick up, there's a lot more leverage that you can accidentally break them off and maybe even break the back of the tray where they plug into. So I would like to have done the clip version, but there's just too many limitations for that version. So I've only uploaded the post version. If people are dying for the clip version, don't care about the limitations, I'll upload that too. But for now, we're leaving it there. And that's it for my show and tell.
So I ran into that same issue when I was working on my trays, and I solved it a little bit differently than you did. I just said, well, take the tray out and set it next to the box and you'll be fine. I couldn't come up with a solution. I couldn't figure out how to get it. I know everybody wants that in and out sliding thing. And I'm like, I can't figure out what the limitations on space, and you still want cars in there. You just you don't have enough room to work on anything. Like I can't make a mechanical slide like a drawer from, like a house drawer, because it's just too much phrase.
Yeah, you lose too much space for cars.
Yeah, you lose a lot when you do that. It's just like, just set it next to it, but I don't know.
And I would be doing that, except at most of the guys' places that we go to, flat space is very limited, so pretty much all the boxes are just right up against each other with very little space to the side or in front or anything. So you'd have to close your lid, put the tray on top, and do what you need to do, and then so the posts actually seem to work pretty good as long as you don't pull it all the way out, at which point that's your fault. Anyways.
I mean, like personally, I don't even like to leave my lid down because people walk by and bump it, so I just always keep it closed. Like, it's just asking for trouble. There's no way to solve this easily. You're gonna have to over-engineer it. When you figure it out, let me know so I can copy you.
Those are the two options I've come up with so far. I think I'm done for now.
It's brutal.
At this point, you're going to print your own box.
Yeah.
I've seen people do it, and they charge a lot of money for it too, because that's a lot of printing. Yeah, there's at least one guy out there doing an entirely 3D printed slot car box with drawers and trays and everything. It's very complicated. Anywho, okay, which one of you guys wants to go first? Who wants to be the segue? Who wants to split up his thing?
I'll go.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Well, as you guys know, I've been mussing around with the oxygen stuff and getting that ready. And I decided Monday that I was going to finally get that software loaded or firmware loaded on the cars, give it a shot. So I tried one car, worked fine, did over 200 laps with that car with no problems, no missed laps, nothing. So I went ahead and did the other the other 7 cars and got that all set to go. Getting ready. It's like we usually start around 4:15 or 4:30. It's 4 o'clock. Okay, I'm set to go. I get it all set up, and I thought, well, I'm gonna do the random testing. So I just shook dice to see who went first and who got the highest number, and just took them in order, and started to set up the cars. And the SCP-3 controllers would not hook up to RCSO2. Couldn't do it no matter what. Tried everything I could think of.
Well, let's back up a little bit. What firmware did you put in the cars and controllers?
Oh God, now I'm going to forget.
Version 3 something or version 4 something?
Is it the 16?
Was it version 3 something or version 4 something?
No, version 3, because RCSO2 only works with version 3. So it's the latest. I think it's 3.18.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. At any rate, I put the firmware that was corrected by Maurizio when he found out the problem due to my not being able to get the cars to work. But that works fine. That's fixed. So I got it loaded into all the cars, and the cars work great. All of them, I did a whole bunch of laps with them. But it turned out when I did that, I thought I'd upgrade last time I did it, I upgraded the controllers also. And after I scrambled to get another 6 cars ready, there were only 3 of us on the day. So, I just randomly grabbed 6 cars off, and we just ran them and had no problems with the races with SSD. And afterwards, I stuck around. And I went, okay, how do I get this fixed? So I've tried 2 different versions of firmware on the controllers. The upshot is the 317 and 318 do not work with RCSO2. The only ones that do are 316H. So And the earlier ones, 316A, I think too, but I didn't try that once I got H to work. So in order to go with RCS02, I had to use 3.16H in order to get it to work. And then it worked fine. I got the controllers hooked up. But apparently the newer software for version 3 does not work with RCS02. And that was the problem. And thanks to your wonderful videos, I had the emergency DFU. I went, oh, I think Greg did a video on that. Yep, he did. So I found it and did it, and I did not have to call you.
Good job, Mike.
And as most of you know, I am a computer idiot. So the fact that I managed to get through it was very satisfying, even if it was a bit late. So anyway, that segues into Club Corner. I'll do that after Jim's done.
Okay, that's interesting because I know obviously they made some changes that required both the firmware in the car and the firmware in the controller to be using the same updated firmware with the fixes for those things. But I didn't know that it changed things such that the dongle and/or software would not be able to cope with those changes. So did you have any time to play with it on PC Lap Counter to see if it could handle
No,
it?
at that point, it was getting pretty late by that point.
Yeah.
Once I figured it all out afterwards.
Yeah,
You know, by
it'd
the
be
time
worth
we were
trying, but also Chrono. I mean, just fire up the slotted Chrono program and see if it sees everything, which it should, obviously, if it's a software issue. If that doesn't see it, then I'm wondering if maybe your dongle is at an older version.
Could be.
Or there's an oversight in their updates that broke compatibility with the version 3 dongle in the version 3 firmware. That's entirely possible. I'll have to.
What's Geo using then? What's Geo using? He's on RCS02, isn't he?
Yeah.
I use basically SPC2 controllers. Although I'm using the last firmware on the chip, the one that solved the issue with the short lap. The controller basically and the dongle, the yellow dongle, I have not changed for ages.
Interesting.
The upshot of that is that the controller that I was using to test was an SCP2. Because I have 3 SCP3s and 1 SCP2. And I was testing with my SCP2. So it worked fine. No problem at all.
So that one worked with RCS02.
Correct.
Okay, it was just the SCP3s that didn't want to talk to it. Okay.
Yeah, I should maybe post that on the forum.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, obviously, not that RCS02 is going to make any changes, but it sounds like whatever they changed in the controller, the way it reports laps to the version 3 dongle firmware isn't right.
Yeah, it doesn't connect with RCS02 at all. It won't even be able to set the thing up.
It doesn't even say controller connect. It's just like not there.
So, again, just to be clear, Mike, which version 3 for the SP3 controller did you use that was not able to hook up with the yellow dongle and RCS02? The latest one. The latest one,
yeah.
The latest, I think it's 18.
Okay. I would test that.
I tried that, and I also tried 317.
Yeah, I can test them too. I just haven't had any reason to. So.
Yeah, me too.
We will corroborate your findings.
Yep.
Did you start a thread already, Mike?
Pardon me?
Did you start a thread already?
No, I did not. No, life has gotten in the way.
Yeah, that happens. All right, let's let Jim do his thing, and then we'll get back to Mike.
Okay, well, we had the Slotted Nationals last weekend, and I'm not going to talk about the race virtually at all because if you wanted to watch the race, it was on live, and you can go back and watch any part of the race. So I'm just going to talk about more about the event, which is kind of why I said kind of half and half between Club Corner and Show and Tell. So Maurizio was there, obviously, and with some new cars. And Friday night, he sat down with all of us and showed us all the new stuff that's, some of it's imminent, some of it's a ways away. So the first thing was some of the Group C cars. And here are the three that he showed us. The Mazda is, I think, ready to go right now. It's in shipping or on the way to dealers or whatever. So that's ready to go. And I think the Jaguar is right behind it. And, you know, some people ask, well, that's just a new livery. This is a brand new car. This is a 767 Mazda as compared to the 787. It's a new mold. It's a new chassis. So it's a brand new car. Even though they do look a little similar, but there's nothing that's interchangeable. So interesting livery. It's not blue and yellow, but it's pink and yellow and green and blue and everything else. So it's kind of a cool livery. The Silk Cut Jaguar. This is the XJR11, which is the European, or what would be then known as the WEC version, as opposed to the XJR10, which is the IMSA version. I don't know if these share the chassis because the car is virtually the same, but the body works noticeably different, so it is a different designation. XJR11 instead of 10. The white on this just doesn't show up in pictures. It's a really nice, it's got a little cream to it, but it's almost a pure white. It's one of the nicest whites I think I've ever seen on a model. And then this is pretty close to being in production because we're seeing the car as is. I don't remember him giving us a time frame on it, but it's the Dyson livery of a Porsche 962 IMSA version. So those are the three new Group C cars. And then we go to the classic cars. So he showed one of the new Matra 670Bs with a semi-long tail. It's kind of a pontoonish thing in the back, so it looks a little bit different. And then he's got a hypercar. So this is the first hypercar for Slotted. The Toyota, I forget what the designation on this is, but it's the Toyota hypercar. Looks great.
Did you actually capture these photographs as like, did you actually time that shot while that car was doing laps?
Yeah, me and Photoshop did that. Yep.
You and Photoshop. Lovely. Got it.
This is a Photoshop technique, which I actually did a video on how to do this. You just isolate, and this is an old automotive technique from way back, automotive photographers from Detroit that used to do this all the time. You isolate the subject, blur the background in the correct direction, and then blur the tires with a radial blur in Photoshop, and it looks like it's going 100 miles an hour or so.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty simple technique, but I think it looks great. It's almost
This looks really good. This really
that one
good.
looks really effective. The next one looks a little weird.
Yeah,
I
seems like a ChatGPT.
I kind of overdid this one a little bit. Yeah, I agree. But it's trying to photograph these cars in real time like that is near to impossible. I've done.
I would have thought so.
For years.
Unless you have $10,000 body and $10,000 lens, then I think you can make.
Has absolutely zero to do with that. It has to do with talent.
Well, I mean, if you okay, so okay, yeah.
I have that kind of equipment. You cannot do this realistically with cars this small going this fast. It's near to impossible. So good equipment helps, but I don't think there's any automotive photographer in the world that could do this with a slot car. This is new. Obviously, this is a ways out, but BMW M3, which will go along with their DTM cars, they're similar to that, similar chassis and similar drivetrain. So this is a new car that will be out sometime in the, doesn't look like near future, but in the future. So this was showed to us. And all these cars he passed around. He just, here, take them. And we passed them around and got to look at them. And I put them on the track later to get some close-up photos. So very, if anybody that's met Maurizio, he's a great guy and very forthcoming and open with new stuff and everything. He talked about the motors with the red label and the black label, why that was, and that's been on the internet too, so I won't go into that, but he went into the detail of why that is.
Yeah.
And getting into the competition, but not the racing competition, the concourse. We had 10 finalists that were picked by Maurizio, and then when we had the 10 finalists, the racers voted to limit it or narrow it down to three finalists. And so this is Roberto Zaletta's car from Mexico. And the car, to me, that car doesn't look real. I don't know about you, but in that picture, that looks like a painting. And
So
which
I
is-
saw this. I saw this on their Facebook thing when they had the voting open. Like I was early on it, and I said it looks like a comic book drawing is what he
it
did
does.
on top of the car. Because if you look at the wheels, they look real, but then he comic book
Yeah.
everything else. I was like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And then it started getting votes because people realized what it was. Everybody just thought it was like something garbage. Like they didn't understand what it was.
No,
Well,
they didn't
I mean,
understand it.
in this picture, it doesn't look real. But it is.
Yeah, I know
why
that's the crazy part.
here, to get an idea.
The style is called comic, and it's very common in RC car racing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't care for it, but it's well done. I'm not trying to downgrade it. It's not my style, let me put it that way. But it was well done, and it's an amazing car. And Roberto was here last year. He's from Mexico. I think he's from the Mexico City area, but I'm not 100% on that. But he came up. They've been there a couple times now to the Slot at National. This was my personal favorite, just because I like Datsuns. I like John Morton. And when I saw this, is a friend of mine who lives in Sacramento, and the car was actually done by John Roberts, who also is from Sacramento. Paul Hendricks ran the car. When I saw this, I went over to a friend of mine down there that knows John Morton. Hey, is John going to be around this weekend? He called him. John came over on Saturday, autographed a bunch of 510s, and then autographed this Nissan Group C tribute for Paul. So I liked that one. I voted for it. You can't deny the winner. Jason won last year, and he did another Mazda, and it's very well done. It looks like a real car, and so congratulations to him. There was another car that didn't get a lot of votes.
I think Greg just voted about 50 times for that car.
In fact, I abstained from voting because it would have been too obvious. But I will say I love seeing this basically the Marlboro chevron design on this car, because that's the livery that I've had done on 2 separate cars by my friend now. I think it's one of the best blue and yellow livery, probably because I love the ratio of blue and yellow is almost 50-50.
Well, I mean,
and he used a nice light blue.
It's just well done.
Yeah, well, that too.
It's like
but I mean, some people do different outlandish paints and everything. This is just well done. It looks like what a real car would be.
For sure, yeah.
There was another car that didn't get many votes, and I'm surprised because it probably, if I'd be honest, it probably should have won. There was a Jaguar, I forget it, I think it was a 10, that was done in a silk cut livery, and it was absolutely spectacular. But I think most people thought it was a factory livery, which weren't allowed in the concourse. But I think people discounted it because it looked like a factory livery, and it wasn't. It was a custom. So anyway, that's concourse. So Jason's won it 2 years in a row now. If you're down in Electric Dreams, why are we doing this here? There we go. When you get down to Electric Dreams, if you see this in the rearview mirror, then you know that you're being followed because he wants to race. And here's what you see when you look at it without the mirror. So that's the Electric Dreams van, which will pick you up at the airport if you so desire. And we had a pop-up hamburger place, which everybody said was phenomenal on race day. So everything is well done at this race, and that's why I said last year was the best race in the world, but I got flack for that, so I won't say that this year, even though it is. There's John with some that's Mark Perkins, one of the Sacramento guys, getting his 510 autograph. So John was there for 2 or 3 hours autographing 510s as well as the Nissan Group C car. As for the race itself, I said I'm really not going to go into it, but here I am in Tech. Tech is held behind closed doors, body off, and he looks over it pretty closely, checks, make sure you got the right motor because the motors are numbered. You got 3 motors. I did this. I wasn't 100% certain I was going to about a week before the race, so I ordered 2 sets of tires and 1 motor. My motor was great, tires were good until my semi-main. And then they were just too sticky, but that's another story. But that's Tech, the room of doom, as they call it. Once Tech is done, they were all put in impound. And interestingly enough, he put them by livery. So it was easy to find your car. Just find which livery and then find which one's yours, because you can see up here, they have your name on them in a 3-letter code, kind of like Formula One. So that's put on your car, so they know which one is which. Because when they go out after you qualify, the next day the heats are set by qualifying. So each tray of 6 is the tray for that heat. So they're set out, so he knows which cars are yours, so he can put them into the heats. This was the first heat. The first heat, Cedric in the red shirt wasn't there for qualifying, so unfortunately he was in the first heat. And typically the first heat is the track's a little dusty, but Mark Perkins and Marco got on the track, so they kept the lanes clean that weren't being run. It wasn't just 3 guys on the track and 3 lanes didn't get run. So that was the very first heat in the morning. I think it started at 8 a.m. pretty early. Maurizio raced, and I don't know who did his car, but he had kind of a custom paint job on his Nissan too. So
that's cool.
I think he qualified around 16th or 17th last year. Believe he was 13th. I think he was the first guy not to make the semi last year. So he's, if he would put, obviously he doesn't put the time and effort, so to speak, because he's there as an ambassador for Slotted. So if he concentrated more on racing, he'd be right up there, I think. Victor kept things going. He ran the show most of the day. And so the racing went very smoothly for the most part. There's a couple little glitches in one race, but Victor kept everything going. We had some visitors from the Midwest. There is Andrew, and they came out. And I think he's come out for a couple of years, but this is the first time he's raced. And he was in one of the lower heats. He did good. And so as you go through, because they start over from scratch on race day, he had a lap record. And so he had the lap record on yellow lane for a bit. And then as the faster drivers got up, those went away. There's the lineup for the semi. We're missing 1 car. So Marco's looking, oh, somebody's missing. There's 11 cars here and we need 12. My car is the one right here. I ran the same Jaguar that I ran last year. And I had the only Jaguar. No, I think there were 2 Jaguars in the semis last year. This year there were 12 Jaguars, but it was split between 10s and 12s. So it wasn't the same car, even though it was the same mark. I got to meet some new people and see some old friends I hadn't seen for a while. Obviously, Dennis was there. Mike Stahl is a friend of mine from Sacramento. Mark Perkins, I've mentioned him before. He's also known, not a slur because he uses it on his thing. He's also known as Asian Bayesian. Ian Rice from Australia came back, and he is really fast. He's just having some bad luck. He missed the semi, I think, by 1 spot, just like he did last year. And then an old friend of mine who I've raced with since the 90s, Paul Goronsky, was there racing 32nd scale cars, not for the first time, but probably the first big individual race. He went to Italy with the Electric Dreams team at the NSR race, but this was his first big 32nd scale race. And my goal when I went down there, when I saw him enter, was to beat him. I beat him in qualifying, and we finished, I think, 8th and 9th in the race. He was a lap ahead of me in our semis, so finished right next to him, and he's ahead like he usually is. We had some legends from the past, and Chris, I'm sure you know these guys. Eddie Shore is a Southern California guy, raced in the 60s. And Howie Ersinger, he's a guy that I read about in magazines in the 60s because he's just about 5 years older than I am. So he was, teenager in the 60s, and I was like 10 or 12. So I wasn't racing, but those guys from back east were in all the magazines. He was one of the top racers in the country way back when. And I talked to him for quite a while. So we had a good time meeting each other. And again, that was one of the reasons I went, was to meet some of these people. The racing, when I qualified 3rd, I kind of got into it, but the racing was kind of secondary to me. Carlos kind of runs the show. Don't go back in there anymore. And he's also the guy responsible for doing all the video, running the video show. So if you watched it on YouTube, you know that the video is absolutely first class. And I think I can say this is the best Slotcar broadcast in the world, bar none, in terms of what it looks like on the live stream and so on. And a lot of that was because of Ian and Doug. Ian are from Magnetic Racing from England, and they came over for the 2nd year in a row to do all the announcing. So they were on the mic pretty constantly, almost all day. And they had a roving pit reporter, Mark Tividon, a local guy, and another lady, which I just met for the first time. I think her name is Kate. They were both doing the roving reporting and the interviews after the each individual heat was over and so forth. So they had the roving reporter as well as the two guys up in the commentary booth. And this is the first time I've been to Electric Dreams since they remodeled, and they put in a bathroom up front. Herbie the Love Bug, the movie car, used to be there. So Herbie's out, the bathroom is in. I knew that, but when I went into the bathroom, I looked on the wall. You know, when you see something on a wall, you just says, don't flush stuff down the toilets or wall. I started reading this. Oh, this is different. So they're trying to keep the humor up, and the restroom is called Splash and Go. So that's new.
Well, it's also nice that they used yellow lettering. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah. So that's the first time. I haven't been there since the remodel. So the last time I was there was for this race last year. So this was quite a while ago, but it was new to me. And then once the race was over, Marco let his hair down. And so I you know, the amount of work and planning and everything that goes into this race is phenomenal. You have to pay to get in. If you're a spectator, spectators have to pay a fee to get in to spectate. And there's bleachers there, and so you have passes, and you know, drivers have passes just like a regular race. So it's treated as a first-class event, and Marco is responsible for that. So, like I said, I'm not going to talk about the racing. I did okay, qualified third, finished ninth. There was 70 some entries. It was cut off at 75, but there were a few no-shows, people at the last minute. So I think there were 70 or 72 people actually raced. Qualifying was on Saturday. One full round of everybody. You got 1 minute. The top 12 went to the second round of knockout qualifying. We got 3 minutes, and I was third after that round, which meant I got to go to the third round of knockout qualifying, 6 of us. And I was third in there. So I was third overall qualifier, which meant I got to sit out. I did not have to run a heat race. Everybody else had to run a heat race to move on.
Sorry, Jim, but so I have to ask, how did Dewan's proxy entry go? How did he do?
I don't know who it was. Dewan, I don't know who was your proxy person.
Dewan's ready to talk about stuff. I'm sure he'll talk about that a little bit.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know who his proxy person was, so I can't say it. I'll let him do it anyway. So, but so that's my take. Again, if you want to watch the race, go on YouTube. It's the full race. 8 hours on Saturday. Sunday, I think it was either 7 or 8 was the first race, and we didn't get out till about 8:30 because you have 12 heats of 6, a short break. The top 3 went directly to the semi-mains.
The live feed was over 11 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
The top 3 went directly to the semis, didn't have to run a heat. To advance to the semi, you had to finish in the top 7 in the heats. So that's 10. And then the top 6 that didn't make it go into what's called a bump heat. And so that's the kind of the last chance qualifier for the next 6 that didn't make it. And then those 2 also go to the semi. And so you've got 3 out of qualifying, 7 out of the heats, and then 2 out of the bump heats. And then you run the 2 semis, and then you run the main, which is longer because it's 5 minutes a lane. And that's for a long day. How much did you say, Wayne? 11 hours?
Yeah, the live stream was over 11.
Yeah, so it's a long day. I kind of like to see him maybe get some of the stuff on Sunday to Saturday and shorten the day a little bit. But it is what it is. When you have 75 racers, it's very difficult to figure out how to make the days shorter.
It's not. So, you fit digital chips.
You can still only run so many on the track at one time.
Yep, that's true. All right, thank you, Jim. And Mike, do you want to do yours?
Sure. Let me share.
For everybody else, we're in Club Corner now, so if you want to put your hand up, go ahead. But if you want to talk about anything, put your hand up, as long as it's Slotcar related.
Before Mike starts, I need to say one thing real quick. I said I wouldn't talk about the race, but Ian Douglas was beyond good. He just dominated the race. He slowly pulled away, and it was a pretty dominant victory, and it was well done, and he deserves it. So I just wanted to say that. I didn't want to slight him and not talk about who won the race.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
Okay, these were my grab the slot cars off the shelf and run. And Garth, in your answer to your question of whether I'm using your chassis or your pod design, the yellow Ferrari 512 is your pod design, and it won. However, it was not fastest. The Sunoco blue and yellow car was fastest by far. It was a solid 2/10, and I think I got to swap the motors out and find out why. So it was kind of interesting because that's a stock slotted pod and chassis. So anyway, these are the cars I grabbed. The Ferrari Porsche Challenge kind of. We randomized the cars. Everybody picked in order, and these were the results. I pretty soundly beat Shiggy, although it was a relatively close race. But I beat him on fuel, and it's been consistent every time. That I consistently will end up with better fuel mileage than he does, just the way I drive. It's just different.
Which car were you driving, though?
I was driving the Ferrari 512.
The yellow one?
The yellow one.
Yeah.
And Shiggy had the Porsche 908. And
Okay.
we were within 100th of a second as far as lap time goes. So the qualifying was very close. I beat him out on quali, but just by hundredths of a second. So it was very close that way. And Joel had the fastest car, and it made it interesting because the problem is he falls off. You can see the lap total; he's just way off, but he still hasn't got got it down to working the controller correctly. He's still a point shoot guy from doing the Malaga races. So it's too bad, but I try to give him the fastest, easiest handling car, and that was definitely it. So he should have been much more competitive than he has been, but he just fell off too much. And Shiggy was of course sitting down because he had a knee replacement last week. Yeah, I'm gonna think of it. No, week before, the Thursday before last week. So he was hurting a little bit, and that could have influenced it. His position on the track, being able to look, will change how your car runs and stuff. So that was the first race. And the second race we did MR slot cars, and here again I had the slowest car, and I qualified second, but I won a race due to fuel, and you can see there even a little bit better. But both fuel and staying on the track. Even though it's a slower car, I stayed on the track and took it for that reason. So anyways, a good night for me. I would prefer to be a little closer. It's much more fun that way. But there are some interesting incidents, one of which I managed to knock myself out on the ghost car, flip over, and end up in a slot. It's just, I've never seen that happen before. I mean, I actually jumped over the pace car. It was just like, how did that happen? It was, and I haven't put the video up, so I haven't looked at it. So, but I will. Anyway, it was a good night altogether, despite not having the cars that I wanted to run. Next week we'll do oxygen with both the GT and the hypercars and see how it goes. I'm hoping for a good result in that regard, and judging by the initial testing that I've done, and it was a whole bunch of laps, it went really well. So the only problem I had was I couldn't figure out why I couldn't pit. And that was due to, well, first off, not much sticks to the bottom of Scalextric track like the magnets. So I've resorted to using double stick tape, which does stick to the track, but somehow one of the magnets is on the particular on the left side and enter the pits. One of the two magnets for the pits flipped over, so I had north facing, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. So finally, I took it off and I went, "Oh, that's not supposed to be." I marked them north and south when I put them in there so that I would know and not have to screw around with it again.
Yeah.
But I'd used my phone testing app to figure out that was the problem. So I wasn't getting a double entrance into the pit. And if you don't have an entrance in the pit, you can't get fuel.
Yeah.
So anyway, that took care of it. And so hopefully most of my problems will be fixed for next week's oxygen races.
Knock wood.
So
that reminds me, I was helping another guy with setting up his oxygen track, and he, basically said something similar about, I think it was the main lap counting magnets and stuff, and I'm like, well, you need to make sure, blah blah blah, and everything, and he sent me a picture of this device. I've never seen one before, but I imagine they've been around for friggin' centuries. But it was basically a magnet on a double axis, so that when you hold it over another magnet, it just swings, to the appropriate pole attracted to that magnet, right? And so the one on the device had a red and a silver, so you just move it over a thing, and you know exactly what pole the other thing is, because the opposite pole gets pulled towards it. And so he sent me a picture showing this device with a magnet pointing at the magnet under the track, and it was the wrong pole facing the track, which meant that his magnet under the track was the wrong pole. I'm like, your magnet, if that device is showing me what I think it's showing me, then your magnet is upside down. Flip it around and you're good. And he's like, that was it. And then he sent me one of those devices. Like, okay, I didn't really need it.
It's interesting. The app works great.
The app does work great, yeah. But that was the niftiest little $5 swingy magnet thing.
That's a cool thing, actually.
Yeah. I'm gonna go in front of Dewan because mine is super short. Last Monday was the last race of the NSR Modern GT series. It was at Russ's track. It's a wood track, fantastic track. I never keep track of my standing because I just go to have fun. I don't really care. And I didn't think I was doing very well to begin with. But for this series, our top two drivers have missed several races altogether. So they were pretty much out of the running, because even with dropping the lowest score you get, they had lots of zeros. So it turned out that I was currently in the lead by a couple of overall points against one of our other more consistent, not crashing much, not the fastest, but fast enough, stays on the track drivers. And so it was basically, depending on how he landed, and it didn't really matter where the top guys ended up on Monday night. It just mattered where me and him ended up on Monday night, and how much of a difference there was between the two of us. And I think, I didn't take a picture of it, I think he actually got one spot above me in the final race, but I was enough points ahead of him that I was still ahead of him, or vice versa. Anyways, turns out I won the NSR series, but only because the fast guys were missing half the time. But hey, a win's a win. You can't win a race if you're not at the race.
You got to show up.
You got to be there to win.
Yeah, well
it's
done.
a win. All right, that's me. What you got, Dewan?
Oh, okay. Well, I unfortunately wasn't able to attend the Slotcar Nationals, and but I had the good fortune of actually having a stand-in for me. I had a guy that been around in racing for quite a while, since the mid-'60s, and got back into it when the electric dreams came up, and his name was Thomas Narita, and he didn't do too bad. He had I think I can showcase his car that he used. He offered to actually put my name on the car as being sponsored by or driven by one car's racing team or something to that effect. But he chose a really nice anime design. And I think I have it sharing. And yeah, it's a very unique livery that he put together, and I just kind of have it there. It's an XJR 10.
He made the top 10 in concourse.
Yeah, what happened here? Why did it stop on me there? Yeah, he made the top 10 in conquest, but the concourse, but didn't make the top three. It fell off apparently. I went to vote on it, and it wasn't there to vote on. So, but it was really nice. He used this thing called it's a JPOP thing that he had. He did a recent race in March and for the Scale Auto event at Electric Games. He is out of El Segundo, so he's just down the street from Electric Dreams, so it made it kind of convenient. You can see right there. I guess this anime is Miku, Miku, Miku. And apparently she's very famous in the Japanese area, doing expos, even concerts on her that theme. And but the other thing he has under is JPOP, and then it's also Tokidoki, which in Japanese is supposed to imply sometimes or occasional. And he says that's pretty much his oops, somehow I lost it again. I guess I would wait too long when I'm doing my little page through the Tokidoki. It's on there somewhere.
It looks like it's on the hood.
Oh, okay. So there, okay.
It's also there.
Yeah. It implies
just above racing.
sometimes or occasional. That's what he says his racing genre is. Sometimes he's racing, sometimes it's just occasional, just kind of on and off. Just depends on his mood. There it goes.
The fade between the pink and the white is
yeah
so smooth. I could at the beginning I wasn't sure if it was just all pink and just the lighting or
I thought it was an awesome livery, honestly.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
Kind of reminiscent of a HKS livery, I seem to recall.
Okay, so that's it. He raced quite well. I had a big problem. I was so disappointed. My internet went out on Thursday, and it was just so super flaky. It was going in and out, in and out, in and out. And I was dealing with it. And when he was in the eighth heat, and it started at 1 o'clock, and I got there just for the heat to start and saw the very first race. And then my screen just went to buffering for 30 minutes. And I come back and it's the ninth race. So I had to wait until the end of the day and look at the whole live stream just to see the race. But he finished 27th overall. He finished second for that heat. Just missed out in winning the heat by half a lap, I think, or so. He did exceptionally well. He was in the below the six, in the sixes rather, for most of his lap. But yeah, so he did well. Finished 27th overall. Much about 30 positions higher than lower than where I would have been. All right, I'll go ahead and stop my share there. But yeah, so.
Great. For future reference, you can rewind live. You don't have to.
Yeah, I did do that. That's what I had to do to see the because I was so frustrated. I couldn't believe it. How it's getting hyped up all the way to that point, and then all of a sudden it just sits there buffering for 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Duan, did he just take your entry spot up?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Jim was saying the car looks better in person, but I was asking, did he actually run your equipment, or did he just take your spot?
Yes, I quote sponsored him. I paid the entry. I gave him my tires. I gave him my motors and the wheels. That was it. Yeah, tires, motors, and wheels. And he, went through the gamut of had two motors and 3 or 4 sets of tires. I can't remember what I gave now. It was a mix of things that I just didn't get around to tuning up. just not in a position to travel yet. Hoping to get that way pretty soon. But so yeah, he took that, and Marco agreed to switch everything over. We did it in 2 weeks ahead of time. So yeah, but I was still listed on the roster as DNS.
That sucks. You weren't even there.
Well,
No, you know what? Listen, Dewan, they did that out of respect.
Okay.
That's what it was.
What were the tires on this year's cars? Were they the same as they've always been?
Same. Yeah.
T25.
Yeah, T25. Yeah. And all right. Yep. So that's kind of for me. I was again privileged to be represented, and they even the broadcasters Ian and Doug mentioned. I was very flattered.
Nice.
Yeah. So
All right.
nice.
Thank you, sir. I believe Garth wants to do something. Do you still want to do something, Garth? I can't. I don't read lips.
Yeah.
Okay. Garth has a show and tell.
Okay, I have a kind of a walk through recent history,
A retrospective.
a retrospective, and then it ends with yesterday. Let's see if I can get the first one up here. Okay, I got a bunch of photos, but this is the start of it, and this is basically a kind of a historical walkthrough of me working on 3D printed Slotcar stuff, starting with the motor pod thing. You see all the motor pods and kind of like the historical significance, and then that kind of morphed into this full chassis version. Okay, and that's the other side of it. Okay, and this is the last version. I got a bunch of photos of that, and we tested on this. So at the end, okay, so this is the first one. This was the first motor pod. And this was, I don't know, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. And it was a SLS printed pod, Sidewinder, modeled after a Slot.it Sidewinder pod, sort of. And it was good. It worked fine. I screwed up a few things. One of the offset was not exactly what I wanted. So went to the next version. This was the next version. This was an MJ. That first one was let me go back to the first one. The first one was SLS nylon printed. Okay. This one was MJF nylon printed. Okay, from the same outfit. And this was the first attempt at a torsional beam kind of pod. And this one worked really quite well and was very light and fast in a slot car. And that jumped into this version, which was a little bit different on the, a little bit slimmed down on the beam, and added a couple gussets here and there. This was very, very good, very nice, and had little different carvings on it. And then that jumped into the motor pod that I more or less use all the time now. And this is the SLS version, first version of the SLS, what I call a rotating tube pod. And this is a two-piece pod. It has this tube that fits into this guy here, and this was the first version of it. And you see there's the rotating. That's why it's called the rotating tube pod, because of this sort of tube, a tube that fits into a tube, kind of. All right, and so that was version 1. And during the first part of getting these printed, okay, it was suggested to me by several people on the chat, Chris Walker and Jim Rose, that I try cutting the bottom of the rear tabs off and putting silicone underneath it for suspension. So that's basically what this pod ended up being. Was I cut a 1 millimeter slice off the bottom of most of the pods. I think I had about 8 of these pods originally. And then that morphed into this pod, which is basically the same thing, only with a revised rear tab on it. Okay. And you'll see this is version 1. Okay. And it's still got its original tab on it. And this is version 2, which had 1 millimeter taken off the bottom and added onto the top. And so that was to make a provision for a 1 millimeter washer underneath it. Okay. And that ended up being silicone foam in today's world. Okay. There's another shot. Version 1 with the original thing, and version 2 that has the pod with the lowered or raised thing. So I got a bunch of cars, probably 20 cars that have this pod in it. There's just one example of it. It's the Ferrari 512. There's a couple of these that I've got. There's the pod in the car. It's got a tungsten slot-dotted tungsten weight stuck in there with a and it's this part is designed to be kind of rattly, and this whole thing ended up being something that Jim Rose thought I should do, and so it's proved out to be pretty good. Most of the pods get this tungsten in there. And let me see, there's a shot of the suspension. This is kind of today's suspension. Okay, even though this is an older pod, it's the version 1 pod that had the bottom of it cut off. It's got a 1 millimeter silicone foam washer on the bottom, and 2 more of those same silicone foam washers sandwiched in between a couple of stainless steel washers and a lock nut. And that's the suspension of it. Okay, works really nice. That's a shot of it from underneath. Okay. All righty. Here's the first version of the full chassis pod. Okay, and this was a little bit of a mistake. It's an SLS printed chassis, but I screwed up and I sent the printer the wrong file, and I had the wrong guide tongue and the wrong wheelbase on this. So I ended up taking a couple of old Lancia LC2 bodies and modifying them in a way that will make that pod work. And it's created a couple of pretty nice cars. Okay, so that was number 1 version. This is the second version. Now this is the F40 version. Okay, so that was the first file that I should have sent the first time. Okay, and this guy here, I had a kind of a revised I-beam thinking in there and had a couple of things for putting wires on it. And for about a year, this was the fastest, smoothest, lightest F40 car that I had. Okay, it was very, very good. Okay, that morphed into a PLA printed version of this. Most of these PLA versions were printed by Jeremy Colbert from the chat. This one here was the very first one, and basically it was the same exact pod as the SLS one that I showed previous. This one did have some problems. It cracked on the motor, the D hole. Okay, so this actually did bridge itself. Okay, and so that led to this was number 1 of the PLA version. This was number 2. The side pods got a little bit bigger, pretty much the same in the front. And you'll see again, I had the cracking problem where I cracked trying to squeeze the motor in there. I broke broke off right on the layer lines. Okay, so that was a little bit of an issue. Version 3, okay, similar, some changes, but similar. It had some wire loops in it and things. This was a pretty good version. Okay, I don't believe I broke any of these that I know of, but this is kind of a problem with a SLS pod. So
FDM.
this is version 4. Okay, so I kind of gave up on having a bridge over the top and just made the D-hole, split out the front, and then I put a trunnion here and added on. If you look backward to the one previous, you'll see that this little area here was a kind of a worrisome thing because it was so not much material there. So I ended with the next version, I ended up making the side plate go out just to stiffen this area and put this trunnion on there. And that helped a lot. And this pod was very good. Much stiffer than the PLA torsion thing, but still a good flat pod, PLA printed, pretty easy. And then that led to version 5. Now, version 5 is the kind of the cool guy, okay? And there were 4 cool kind of breakthroughs on this pod. And the first one was this. I removed and I'm going to go backward again. You see this had a tungsten spot back here, and I removed that because I never ended up putting any weight back there. So I put a stiffener in here right underneath the bushings, right across the pod. And you also see that this center spine also came through and attached into that stiffener. And that made this rear part of the motor box just absolutely rigid, really, really quite good. So that was number 1, okay, of the improvements. Number 2 was the torsional, what was the torsional kind of I-beam got much, much smaller and thinner and, carved out, and some different wire loops and things on it. And so that made this much flexier, okay, compared to the PLA version that had, this is again PLA printed, PLA version that had the thicker I-beam in it, okay. So number 3 was what you see back here in this guy, and this is the 2-into-1 body mounting thing that fits up into the Ferrari F40 or Polycar, either one, body, and it creates a 2-post place to connect 2 posts. So this made the chassis into a 2 rear 1, so a 3-post chassis. Okay, and that helped a lot with the body. Okay, number 4 of the improvements was this bridge plate. Okay, and this part of the chassis was thickened up, and 2 holes were put in there to be tapped, and they're tapped with an M2 tap. Okay, and this little bridge guy here fits in there, and then the 2 things screw it down, and so it creates its own bridge. Okay, so it stiffened up this whole side, and that was really quite a great improvement. This was track record holder for a couple of months. Okay, and then we jump into the next version, okay, which is number 6. This is number 6, and number 6, I originally had it 3D printed. Okay, and there's the differences on number 6 were this front part. You'll see that this is the old version. Okay, here where it had the remnants of the original I-beam in here, and that was carved down, and then this part here was surfaced off, so I had a spot where I could make lead weights be put into it. Okay, and then the rear, the two pod positions in the back, chopped off. The original version didn't need it because the 2 pods, this part worked fine with it. And so, and then, but the original number 6 was SLS or PLA printed, okay? But I had problems with it, okay? I broke off, I had about 4 chassis and I broke them all right at the point where I was putting the bushings in it, okay? Pressing the bushings in it, gluing them in. And I split right down layer lines, okay? And as I started, and it was very disappointing because the chassis was so nice and flat after I had put these ribs on it and everything to flatten out the chassis, because this number 5 was not as flat as I wanted it to be. And although it was a track record holder, so I did some things, you know, with this ribs and that to make this flat. But what happened was, for some reason, the type of material that we were using on the PLA print, everywhere where it was really thick, like on the towers here and on this area and this area, it just snapped right at the layer lines. So it was really unusable. So at that point, I was just really disappointed. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to try to go back or forward, depending on how you think about it, and get this SLS nylon printed. And so that's what this is. This is an SLS nylon printed chassis, okay? And I got this just a little while back, okay, like on Monday, okay, I got them. And we've been testing this. That's what it looks like, okay? And you'll see, again, keep in mind that all this design was for the PLA. So I still had this version in here that had the tapped holes. And that proved to be a problem in the nylon. I couldn't tap these holes very well at all. And they ended up kind of pushing out, instead of tap threading it, kind of pushed out the hole and split and did some linear splits on this. So I ended up gluing the part on there. And so really the nylon version of this is going to go back to the original everyday chassis that has there's no reason to have this on a nylon version. This was strictly for the PLA version. So, but that's the nylon version as it is today. I built up 2 cars. This was on Monday. Okay, this is the first car. That's the second car. There's a rear of the second, rear of the first. Okay, that's the underneath of you see the chassis. You see how the 2 into the thing works. Okay, this is pretty much self-explanatory. That's the second car. Here's the 2 together with the 2 nylon versions, okay, put together with no weight. Started out with the Greg Gobb theory of don't put any weight in your original printings, okay, and so this was the 2 cars, and damn are they fast, and damn are they light, okay. So I'm learning a lot about flexing and the flexing of materials, okay. This car is very flexy because of the material that I used, okay? And so let me show you the back. And of note here is the bridge, okay? Now this is the first car I put together, and so what I had problems with tapping these holes. It didn't work in the nylon. So what I ended up doing was just putting some epoxy down into the threads, and I epoxied the bridge, this is a PLA printed bridge plate, and put 2 screws in there, and it's all glued together. And so that created a solid thing and the motor fits in there fine. This was the second version, okay. Because I couldn't tap it, I decided to do something a little bit different on the second version. So what I did is I drilled out the already existing nylon holes in there with a 1/16 inch drill, and I put 2 styrene rods down into the holes, epoxied in, slid this little PLA printed plate into it, with it all epoxied on, clamped it, let it dry overnight, clipped it off and sanded it off, so it's all like it's a solid one. So both cars, virtually with one guy driving both cars, there's no difference. Okay, they're both were equal. Okay, this shows a little bit of how the back part is. Okay, and right off the bat, you know, it's right down in the track record, and this was with no weight. Okay, and that's a view of the top. You see that that part. That's the front. You see where I got spots to put weight, and in a little bit I'll show you some weight I put in there. Okay, another view of the back. Here the back of the front. Okay, and here's a shot showing the this is the spot where we can put a tungsten weight in there if we want.
What you
And
don't
I've got a
do.
bunch of updates that I'm going to do to this, mainly around this area here. You know, I want to thicken this wall, raise it up a little bit. Okay, probably thicken this beams. This is very flexy in the middle, but you know, it's very light and very fast. Okay. There's the right at the end. Yesterday we spent 2 hours testing these cars, and right at the end, I added this weight in, these 2 plates in there. We had about 5 minutes to run the car, and it immediately went to the fastest lap time, and it's probably going to take about a half second off of everything, and it just gives a little bit of. This is 1.6 grams, 1.6 grams, so a total of very low 3.2 total weight in the front. Keeps the front end down a little bit better. Okay, this is a little my favorite material, the template made out of bread tie plastic. Okay, there's the close-up shot of how this fits into the cavity. So it's as low as I can get it right there. Okay, so that worked out pretty well. And so we're going to do a lot more testing on it, but it's a track record holder at the moment. So anyways, anybody got any questions or anything? Or?
Are you still developing the pod?
Yes, the pod is going to get an update right now. Actually, let me go forward a little bit here, Jim. I'll show you. This is a pod I sent to. This is the second version 2 of the pod. I just sent this to Courtney because he won't leave me alone. So he wants to try it in one of his proxy cars. Okay, and this is all set up for him. It's got bearings in it. It's got my current favorite setup for the suspension, but I'm sending him a bunch of other stuff. Okay, and the way this works, I might just talk about this a little bit. What I've discovered with the second version is I used to drill this hole out just to get that screw in there, to get the threaded part through this, but I don't do that now. What I do now is I thread this, I thread the tab, and then these are actually 2 screws that I fabricate myself, but I also have some that I bought from China. And what I do is I take these and I put them in a Dremel tool, and I turn them down with some sandpaper and just really spend a lot of time making sure that they are exactly to the dimension that I want. And that dimension is just slightly smaller, about 0.005 of an inch smaller than the inside of the threads. Okay, so this threads through. Okay, and it allows this clear shaft to be inside the tab, and then these threads, this upper or lower part of the threads, never go down into the tab because they're suspended up here. So it creates a nice cavity for the shaft to fit, to go up and down slightly. Just I mean, it doesn't really need to move very much, just slightly. And then it also gives it just a little bit of left, right, front, back. Okay, not very much at all. Okay, and again, you can adjust all that with you're using different types of silicone and stuff I've got. And so I sent this all to Courtney. He's got some foam stuff, some silicone foam stuff here, some silicone O-rings, and some, solid silicone 1 millimeter and 0.5 millimeter thing. So he can experiment and do whatever he wants. But this is almost every car that I have, that I've got about 8 sets of dual cars, so 16 cars that have this, and it's proven to be the best way to go. And then so this is all set up for him. That's another shot of it. Okay. But the changes, what you originally asked, Jim, the changes are going to be, let me go back to the original part of the pod.
I've got an idea you might want to try with a pod.
Well, let me tell you what I'm going to change first, okay? And then you can throw in your idea. Shit, half of it is your idea to start off with, buddy. Okay, here we go. Just let me get a top shot. Okay, these are going away. Okay, these 2 back holes are going away, and that rib that I have on the PL on the full chassis that goes from here to there is going to get added into that to stiffen up this area. Probably that rib will fall back into this area. Okay, that's the first change. And then this wall is going up. Okay, and this is going to have a bridge that goes over into that wall to make this less flexy than it is now. Although it's not really that big of a problem. Okay, so some minor changes. This is going to get cut out. This is kind of modeled after the original Slot.it kind of thing, and I found that I like just the straight up hole better.
Yeah,
okay?
I think that's better.
Yeah, and I also like these holes. I like to make them smaller than the screw, and then I like to be able to just drill them out to the size that I want. Okay, and also the same thing as with this is I actually make this just a little bit smaller, and then I get in there and carve it out and do what I want, so that the bushings that I put in there. So what's your idea?
Okay, the spine of that, the 2 pieces, the rod and the piston, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, hang on, let me go forward here. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go backward. Okay, there's the 2 pieces.
Take that whole assembly, both pieces, and raise it 5 millimeters. I'm just pulling 5 millimeters out of the top of my head, but just raise it so the pivot point is higher than the axle. And in theory,
well, there is one slight problem. Okay.
Okay.
Keep in mind that this is strictly designed to fit into a Slot.it car, and there's the problem. If I raise that spine way up in the air, it starts to hit the inside of some Slot.it interiors. Okay, so that's why it's where it's at now. Okay.
Yeah, I get that. I don't think Courtney would have a problem with it. He'd figure it out.
Oh yeah, but I'm not designing pods for Courtney.
Yeah. But the idea is to raise the roll center. I think the car would roll less and keep the.
Yeah, if Courtney wants to, rip off, a couple $300,000, I'll do that for him. But I do.
Work, I'm not sure, but it's just kind of a wild ass. If you raise it maybe 3 millimeters, just see what it would do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, obviously you can't raise it so it hits the interior. But...
Yeah, actually, I'm just going to go back a little bit and just kind of tell you why I know that. See this, Jim? This was one of the first pods I showed. See this little spot here? How I just went right across. This actually interfered with a lot of stuff, and that's why it ended up being that. Okay, where it's carved out more, which is very, very much the same as what this is here. Okay, so it's try to get it out of the way.
You can raise that to the top of the other piece, where it's attaching, because that's not hitting the bridge between the 2 screws in the front. You could raise it to the top of that, or make that whole assembly a little bit smaller in diameter to enable you to raise it a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very reluctant to do anything with this right at the moment, but that would be a whole other new pod, okay? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah,
This one is
yeah.
this one's gonna get revisions that allow it to be better than it already is, although it's already really good as far as I'm concerned. And still hold true to it fits into any slot.it car thing. And also, there is on the way in the plans of making a Sidewinder version of this, okay, that has a short, the Sidewinder would have this rotating part here would be just slightly smaller than this, would maybe come out to about here, and then the Sidewinder.
Do you mean inline?
No,
Do you mean
no.
inline, Garth?
What?
It is a Sidewinder.
It
Do
is
you
a
mean
side-
inline?
Oh, I'm sorry, angle winder.
Angle
I'm
winder.
sorry, I said the wrong, I
Okay.
used the wrong word, Wayne, angle winder, because everybody asked me for an angle winder, and I could care shit less about angle winders. I really don't like angle winders, but I think it might be time for me to make an angle winder with this configuration on it.
Courtney would want one with a mini with an 050 motor.
You know, yeah, Courtney.
What motor do you plan to put
I
in an
found
angle
that the
winder configuration?
the best way to deal with Courtney is just send him something in the mail and then erase his phone number. Okay, thanks for the idea. So you're saying raise this rotator up to center. You know, one of the things that I have found, okay, that I originally when I was doing this guy, Jim, when I tightened down, I used to like leave this part. This is threaded M2, and I put a threaded screw in here. Okay, a M2 by 5mm thread screw that goes all the way in here from the bottom. And I originally started like leaving this kind of loose, thinking that the whole thing, and I totally, you know, after I started really working hard on the suspension part of it, I totally abandoned that, and now this gets tightened down. This
Yeah, that's the whole point of that design in general is you want that rigid. You want all the flex to come in the
yes
spot. What do you call it?
And it's kind of, you know, it's kind of it. The only thing that's a problem with this slight rotation that this thing has is, man, you got to make sure that this area here, okay, on the pod, okay, as it fits down, and I'm talking just slot.it things. And I warned Courtney about this because he's going to put it in scale auto, and I don't have any idea what the scale auto looks like there, but all the slot.it pods have a bevel at that point. So you want to make sure that that bevel on this and on the chassis that you're putting it in, you know, will allow this to, you know, rotate, okay, freely. You don't want it to. I noticed that in my most recent addition.
You don't want it binding on the chassis.
Yeah. Yes. My most recent addition of this pod into a set of cars to race IROC with was a couple of old Ford GTs, and that chassis, you know, with the older chassis that thing has, it had a lot of problems right in that area. And as soon as I started filing a little bit on that bevel and making sure that the pod that was in there was clearance good enough, okay, the car just responded very quickly. Okay, and
Does that have the stock offset as a slotted pod?
I'm sorry, say again.
Is the axle offset the same as the slotted pod?
It's a 1 millimeter drop. Okay, so it's the same offset as a 1 millimeter offset slot.it pod.
Okay, yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Is that too much for you, Jim?
No,
What car do you have in mind for it?
nothing, because I can't run anything like that in the rules that we have. So I'm just intrigued by it.
Yeah.
Jeremy's
Cool idea.
Jeremy, is Jeremy on the thing here? I'm gonna get rid of this, okay? Is Jeremy still here, or did he take off?
I have nowhere I can run it.
Yeah, he's still
He's
here.
got him. Got a pod.
Oh, Todd's here.
And Todd's here. Holy crap! We've only got 5 minutes.
Hi guys.
All right, stop talking, Garth. You've well overdone your time.
No,
Todd's
I was
here.
enjoying that.
Tell us about awesome things, Todd. We'll run over the 2
Oh
hours.
boy. Yeah, Dewan asked me if I could join, so sorry for joining a little late, but glad I could make it for the tail end and see some cool 3D printing stuff.
We heard a lot from Jim about things. Just kind of a quick, like, how do you feel, right? You know, how was the race for Ian won and all that, but you obviously did very well. So just kind of give us a vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty good about my result after the race, and obviously, as a team, getting 1, 2, 3 was really great. I think I had about as good of a race as I could, given how the car was, right? So I made a tire change actually between the semi and the final because I had way too much grip in the semi and was struggling basically every time I pushed the car. Every time I pushed the car, it would come out. And so I just kind of towards the end of the semi, yeah, and I think that happened to a lot of people. Towards the end of the semi, I was just kind of driving it to keep it in and make sure I made it into the main. So I wasn't really trying to race because Justin and I think we're pretty close. I wasn't really pushing to catch him. I just wanted to make sure I made it in. And then I changed in the final. I changed to what we call an inter, which is like a basically a rough tire, but we do it like really clean with like an 80 grit drum. So it's got essentially lines in it. And that was definitely the right choice. The car was way more forgiving. And, after the first lane or so, like the grip started to really come in, but I think it did what I wanted it to do. The car is super forgiving, but I couldn't really lean on it nearly as hard. So, I mean, if I had my choice, I would have had maybe like 10% more grip, but you can't always get things perfect. So I think I drove the race for the car I had. What's that?
I saw your car every once in a while just step out in the main.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted, right? Like I want a car that when I push it to the edge is just going to let me know. Like we call it the car being polite. So just letting us know, like, hey, you're pushing a little hard, and then you can kind of sneak up on that edge a lot closer. But the edge wasn't quite as far as I wanted it to be. So, but yeah, it was a super forgiving car. I mean, it only came out once in the final, so it was. It was the race I needed to drive with the car I had. So it was, overall, I can't complain about that.
Todd, did you achieve a higher total number of laps in the main than last year?
Well, yeah, for me last year, I'm sure, because I broke I should say I pushed a grub screw up through the top of my upright in the first lane of the final last year. So, I don't even know what my end total was. I mean, Ian matched his total from last year. I think he had to drive a little harder this year than last year. But
well, his leading margin was much smaller this year than last. It was, I think, 6 laps or 7 last year, and only 3 this year.
It ended up just under 5 this year, but most of that was like in the final. I think 2 of those came in the final lane because I was driving black and he was on yellow. So because my car didn't have as much peak grip as I would have wanted, driving black, normally I would be able to attack that lane pretty hard, and it just wasn't possible to really push a lot of sections of that. So yeah, I mean, it was definitely closer throughout the race, I think, than last year. So
that's where I was getting my 3 from, because you were holding him, or it unfolded to be about 3, or it looked that way until the last lane. Yeah,
and I knew that was kind of. I mean, my lane choice was intentional. Like I chose blue, which is not normally where I would start, knowing that I had a set of tires I needed to break in. I needed that they were going to need to come up a bit with grip. And blue is a good lane to do that on before I go to white and red. And then I knew I was going to kind of backload it where I was going to have lane advantage for the last half although it's debatable whether black is lane advantage on yellow, depending on the class. But I knew I was going to have a section where I could pull laps back on him, but it just wasn't quite there. I think maybe pulled one when he was on red and I was on green, but other than that, well, yellow is where I had my off. So yeah, I think we ended up about the same on that one. But
Can
yeah,
anyone tell us more about that situation where the lane voltage appeared to be dipping up and down?
Yeah, it's something that's happened before there. We've kind of debated on what exactly is going on. Green has always felt like in certain sections it's had kind of weird issues where it's like the power can be a little surgy at times. Like it'll kind of have low power and then all of a sudden it comes back up. I don't know if it's potentially an issue with like PWM controllers because we run true speeds where it's changing that, because it almost feels a bit like when you adjust for a motor that's really sensitive to it, it's like where you adjust the PWM like all the way to one extreme and it can feel really kind of rough and ragged the way it drives. And you can go back all the other way and it's really smooth. At the end of Scale Auto, actually, we had some issues, both Ian and I, on green, where it felt way, way different than the other lanes. I know there were times on other lanes though where people were feeling it. So I'm not totally sure. It is all running on one. What's that?
I was on blue when that happened, when Ian called that track. And on blue, my car on the left side of the track had power, on the right side it didn't. It was really weird.
Yeah, I think I was on black at one point and I felt like I had some issues where in the big sweeper before start finish, which, well, on black it's a big sweeper, I'd feel like, okay, I'd be partial throttle and be driving it around, but it was almost like, the controller was increasing power without me pulling the trigger. And there were times where, yeah, you were trying to pull it around and it wasn't quite going. You'd have to pull a little harder. So I don't know. It's one big power supply. It's not Independence. It's a 50 amp, I think. And we were debating all sorts of things, and I don't want to speculate and start rumors or anything, because obviously that track has been amazing. So I'm also not an electrical engineer or anything, so I can't fully say.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and end the live stream, but as always, we'll just hang and talk about all kinds of things. Todd, absolutely hang around because these guys go on and off the rails over and over. So until next week, everybody wave bye. I'm ending the stream, clicking the end button, waving until I go bye bye, and we give it a couple extra seconds.